as long as I've been in education, really as long as I've been a grown person, I've been told, watch how you handle other people's children. 9 months later, the young man lost his job when his wife found out that he was trying to talk to a child's mother at the school.
I know you lying. Welcome to So Your Boss Sucks Now What? I'm your host, Natalie Parker. Generally speaking, I absolutely frown upon most forms of nepotism at work. But since it's my podcast and the person I'm going to bring on is pretty dope, we'll allow it. My next guest is a family member. She's actually my cousin, but she's recently been awarded the Teacher of the Year. And she has veteran teaching status of over 20 years in her hometown of Danville, Virginia. In this episode, we're going to talk about everything from her chaotic first days as an educator and why education for her is so important in both her own upbringing and that of her children. We're going to talk about how she echoes my sentiment of document everything and how she suffered public humiliation in her classroom from a leader and how she managed that. We're also going to talk about some real deep challenges she had with not only burnout, but also a personal issue she had and how her leaders failed to support her and what she did to find herself and advocate for herself. This episode is extremely deep, and it also deals with some very sensitive issues. And so I challenge you to listen with care, give yourself grace, and take a minute and listen to my conversation with my cousin, Ann Anderson. Have you on So Your Boss Sucks Now What? How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you on for a myriad of different reasons. Not only because you are a veteran in your craft, not only because you have such a great longevity of recognized experience, of awarded experience, but because you're my family. And so I'm going to put that out there right now. This is my fam. So if y'all don't like this episode, that's on y'all because we're going to have fun. So listen,
that's right.
I want to talk about, you hail from my mother's hometown, Danville, Virginia, as my grandmother would call it, the Big D, right?
Big D.
And the Big D. Tell me about when you knew that teaching was the thing that you were made to do.
Well, coming from the Big D and coming from the White Rock community, we've had a wealth of love. We were born in New York, and my mother passed when we were very young. This community rescued us. The McLaughlin family, White Rock Hill, they were so kind to us. They just brought us in with open arms. And this community has been our home for well over 50 years. We have not wanted to leave here because it has been the root of everything for us. I mean, it's just been our home. So with that being said, when I started having children, of course I wanted to make sure that my children were rooted in this community. And of course I wanted to make sure that my children got the same love that we had gotten. And then I said, well, wait a minute. The love that this community gave me, I need to give to other kids as well. And so with that being said, teaching was only natural. And I believe that it's not just the educational aspect of it, but the structure. The kids need structure. They need to know that they are loved. They need to know that, what's out there to prepare for the future. I mean, there needs to be a lot more grounding because today they don't have as Aunt Jenny would say, the raising that we had back in the day. It takes a village to raise a child. And that's what we need to remember that.
So
and I love it.
The Aunt Jenny that you mentioned is my grandmother, Jenny McLaughlin, who passed a few years ago, and I miss her dearly. And she's one of the reasons why I think I made my entree into corporate America, because she used to call me Miss Executive Lady. Every time she was like, where you going, Miss Executive Lady? And my grandmother was a part of the community that you talked about. And I think the other thing that strikes me as as I'm talking to you is that I would say that our family is full of what my Uncle Wesley, I remember he said this one time in a sermon. I thought it was like, what is he? He's making up words. Our family is full of academicians, right? People who
Mm-hmm.
are deeply enthralled and in love and pursuing academia and all things academic. And it makes sense to me that you found space in there. It makes sense from, my grandfather, Uncle Wayman, your
Mm-hmm.
grandmother, like they all had such a deep understanding of the value of capturing, retaining, and relaying knowledge in a way that made it compelling. It made it, you wanted people to hear you, to listen to them and to tell the stories in the way that they did. Talk to me about how growing up around that knowledge bank, if you will, kind of shaped you as an educator.
I remember Grandma Odessa P. Watkins, and she was, I want to say, a bishop in her right, because she went from church to church to church, and she gave speeches all over town. And she was constantly writing speeches, she was constantly practicing speeches, constantly making us give welcome speeches and the announcements, and oh my goodness, we had to perform in every program. It was just amazing. But and at one time I remember, man, why do we have to always do this? But it got to the point where it was enthralled in us, where we knew that was going to it was expected of us. It was expected of us to perform. It was expected of us to learn. It was expected of us to speak in church, in public, to read, to make sure we enunciated. I remember being young, and your grandfather, Uncle Ernest McLaughlin, he would make sure we had dictionaries at the house. I couldn't go anywhere on Saturday mornings or really early Saturday afternoon because he'd be working on his sermon. And he would call me at any time to ask me how to spell a word. And I remember one time I made the mistake of asking him why he needed me to spell a word for him, because he was reading the sermon. No one was going to be reading the sermon. They would not know if the word was spelled incorrectly. He laid me out so I would never ask him that again. So I made sure I was always available for Uncle Ernest. I also remember Uncle Wayman coming down, and we were always having birthday celebrations each month. So if we might have 5 people that had a birthday in the month of July, and so we had a big birthday celebration. And I loved it when Uncle Wayman came down, because I wanted him to see something that I had written in school, because he would make over it. So, oh my goodness, he would say I was the smartest thing, and he would, read it, and he would, oh, if I was your teacher, I'd give you an A for this, and this is what I like the best. And he made me feel like I was the star student. He did, and I loved it. So it was that type of support, that type of love. You know, they all fed our self-esteem. They fed our need to learn, our need to be somebody, our need to know what our niche was in life. They fed our need to know our community, our need to know our heritage, our need to know, where we our past so we can know what our future is. They fed everything. And so just from that alone, I have so many stories to tell my own children. I love to tell them the stories of, just White Rock Baptist Church, of, Mr. Bland, Mr. Kenan Bland, Miss Vivian Bland, all of the educators that were in the church with us. Mr. David Lyons, Miss Annette Lyons. We had bank president in the Mr. Sylvester
Yeah, I mean,
Jennings, the first black bank president. We had Black history every Sunday, and we didn't even realize until we got older. And this younger generation has no earthly idea on the richness of what Danville's community has to offer. It's amazing.
yeah, it is amazing. And I will say one of the benefits I had, although I didn't grow up in Danville, is I did get to take a class with our Uncle Wayman. So Uncle Wayman was my grandfather's brother. and he was a doctor of philosophy at A&T. And I remember taking his class and just how much knowledge he had, and just the level of just not critical thinking, but philosophical thinking, his ability to juxtapose ideas against each other.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that having a community of learners and lifelong learners is really a game changer as an educator. So talk to me about, you get into the, you decide to go into education. Like, what was the first year like for you?
Well, it was a rude awakening because the children, bless their hearts, were not as receptive as I was hoping they would be.
But do you want to learn?
That's not every child wants to be in the classroom, and so that's just a whole struggle in itself. But once you get past the behavior barriers and you make those relationships, then they're eager to learn. So you have to tell a lot of stories. You have to make them interested first, and then they're receptive to whatever you're trying to say to them. But most definitely, it was something else. It really was. The attitudes were out of this world. They
And
really were. And so
what age did you start? What grade level?
I started with 12th grade, 10th grade, and ninth grade. So I had three grade levels when I first came in. And now, when I came in, I had no experience whatsoever. So I didn't go to school for teaching. I was going to school to become, well, I was going to school to become a reporter.
I
I was going
remember
for
that.
communication. And as I was reporting for the Danville Register and Bee, I was asked, I was covering the education beat, and I was asked, hey, you're covering the education beat. Would you like to become a teacher? Because we need an English teacher. We need several English teachers, actually, so we'd love to have you. I said, oh, I don't think I'm interested in that. And so they had several principals call me, and I said, well, maybe so. My goodness. So that was a real rude awakening, but I've loved it ever since. But it did take about 2 months to get the hang of it. To have three different curriculums going, um, three different sets of students. I mean, students who were literally okay with having, wrestling on the floor as I was coming into class to teach them. So they really had to have a lot of rules put in place, a lot of structure put in place. But thankfully, we lived through it. That was my first year 20 years ago. They
So
didn't run me out of town.
now you are what I would considering a veteran in the high school education space. You've taught all grade levels in high school?
Yes,
Okay. And that's been mainly your space?
yes. So ninth,
So,
10th, 11th, and 12th. Yes.
which is a nice little cross section of phases in development.
Hmm.
20 years in, you received, was it last year received the Teacher of the Year award?
Last year, yes, ma'am.
So tell me what that felt like. You finally, like, a whole 20-year career, you get the Teacher of the Year award. What did that feel like for you?
I was very humbled that my colleagues considered me worthy to get Teacher of the Year. Um, I work very hard to make sure that they have a Black History program, to make sure that we have a lot of tutoring for the children, just to help any of them, anything that they need. And so to think that they would do that for me, I just couldn't believe it.
Hmm.
I just couldn't believe it. I was at a loss for words, and even now still, I'm at a loss of words that they would even do that. I really am.
I think that,
See,
I
now
mean,
that's an award. That's an award. I want to say once again, the other teachers voted me for that. So the teachers
mhm,
at George Washington High School.
right. But your career hasn't always been sunshine and rainbows, right? Talk to me about, the first time, we can save the names to respect the guilty and the innocent. The first encounter you had with a bad leader or bad leadership skills as you were working as a teacher. What was that like?
Well, I do want to say that within 20 years, I have not had many bad encounters. So that
Okay.
is a definite blessing. But of the encounters that I have had, they have been major ones. I've had a couple of new principals. Well, let me rephrase that. I've had a principal who came in, and she was very rude to me in front of my classroom. She was demeaning, yelled at me, didn't like the lesson that I had
For
prepared for
what?
my students.
I'm telling you,
She, and you
come to
know what?
Miss Anderson, what you doing? Like, what?
No, she came in. She came in. She was actually a very new. She was a new principal from another state. She was making rounds. She had only been there maybe two 2.5 weeks. But the 2.5 weeks that she had been there, it seemed like we had been in school 20 weeks
Mm.
because of the way she was talking to the staff and the teachers. It was a long 2 weeks. And when she came in, I can't exactly remember what she said, but she did not like a movie clip that I was showing and the discussion we were having about, I believe it was, I think I was showing a movie to compare to a book, and it was maybe like a 5 minute clip. And she didn't appreciate that. And she stood up and told me not to show that again. And the children turned and looked at her. They couldn't believe that she was saying that because there was nothing wrong with it. And I just sort of kept on going. I did not even acknowledge her. I just kept on going. And she ranted a little bit and she left and slammed the door. She
What?
certainly did. She slammed the door, and we just kept on going. And the students were very upset, but we just kept on going. They were very upset. There was another time when I've had a I've had an administrator make a comment to make other comments to other teachers, calling them stupid in meetings. So not to me, but calling other teachers stupid. I've heard administrators, and when I say administrators, I'm not just talking about principals. Talking could be,
Right.
someone in the school board office, maybe talking negatively about people in the community or students or other teachers. I've heard someone speaking very negatively towards a student, very negatively, and those things impact the students because it doesn't matter. Even if a student is unsure about wanting to be there, regardless of what the student has going on, the student still expects the teacher, the administrator, to do their job and to lead them. They still expect, they want structure, regardless of whatever they say. They're yearning for that. They're yearning for that. And so you've got to be as polite and you've got to be as pleasant and you've got to try to, manage and do your job the best you can. And when you're not pleasant, when you are not polite, when you are just, negative to that child, what kind of impact can you have? You don't know what these kids go through when they're at home.
But so I want to kind of rewind back to the leader who came into your classroom and started criticizing and what have you. What was what was the outcome of that situation between? Did you go back to her and say, "Hey, listen, I didn't appreciate that," or "I want to understand where you're coming from," or did you kind of just shut yourself out of it and just keep going?
Well, that's a good question. At that time, um, I believe tensions were so high, there was not going to be that would not have been a viable solution to do that. No, I should have let that go. I did write it up and I did send, um, oh, I wrote it, I documented it, and I believe I submitted a letter to school board members about that. But outside,
Hold on. Wait a minute.
mhm,
I gotta do this because I tell everybody all of the time when
mhm,
it comes to poor behavior in leaders at work, document everything.
document,
So proud of you for documenting everything.
document, and I did submit to school board members, and later on, that young lady, she was no longer. She was let go later on, but there were other issues that were going on. So she only spent about maybe a half a year with us, and she went on her way.
I will say that my professional diagnosis and experience, regardless of the industry, is that when a leader, especially at the executive level, comes in hot like that, where they're criticizing and berating or extremely, I'd say acutely aware of the negative things happening in a
Mhm,
situation, be it a school or corporate
mhm,
situation or whatever. What happens is during the interview process, they are hired with the concept and the intent of like, we're bringing you in to fix this.
mhm,
They're brought in with like, listen, these people are not doing their thing. Your team's a little this, your team's a little that from some other person. And they've got the impression, they typically get the impression that they have to come in and clean house. And no one ever tells y'all that. Nobody tells
right.
workforce of like, hey, listen, this person's coming to whip you into shape,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
And more often than not, the person that's doing the appointment has no relationship or even context or facts around that. Often, sometimes it's true, sometimes it's not. And it's,
mhm.
it's that it's the person's coming in with some mission of setting the house in order that does not take into account the need to observe before they start disrupting things and to learn before they start disrupting things. So if you're a leader listening and
Outstanding.
you're a new leader, I encourage you to get the book The First 90 Days. I encourage you to do listening tours before you start touching stuff because
Mhm,
more often than not, you've gotten one side of seven sides of a story and you don't know what to change because you don't know what you're getting ready to blow up. And it sounds like a combination of that and the leader just not having a lot of tact and grace.
yeah. And then also, Natalie, there was another time when now I got along with another administrator. He was a very nice fellow, but as far as his leadership skills, I do question them because there was an issue where I felt that another employee was inappropriate with some of our female students. And when I, as a mandated reporter, reported that, it was ignored. I reported it again, and later on, and then it got to the point where the students were coming to me and talking to me and complaining about it. So my conversation with the students were, ladies, tell your parents, tell the principal, report it, because it's inappropriate for a man to be, especially a man who is working here, to be doing this, to be talking to you all like this. So we have a meeting, and the principal and a school board official and the young man who I had reported earlier are bullying me, talking about I shouldn't be telling these young ladies that it's inappropriate, but it was inappropriate. But yet I sat there and I listened. And I sat there and I listened. And I'm going to tell you why. And it makes me sort of laugh to myself because I believe these three young men felt that was my silence was weakness, but it wasn't, because I had nothing personal against that young man who I reported as a mandated reporter. Nothing personal at all. I didn't know that young man personally. I didn't. But as a mandated reporter, I need to report it. But if
So
I had sat, oh, I'm sorry, please.
no, no, no. So for the finish your thought because I want to also explain to people what mandatory reporting is, especially in the education space.
Oh, sure. Okay. So, but the thing is that I wasn't going to argue about the man's case, because then that would make it seem like I wanted the man to be guilty. I'm just telling you all that this is what's going on. So I wasn't trying to sit over here and go and have an argument with them. I'm just telling you all this is what's going on. So it's your at this point your responsibility as the administrators, as the man's supervisor, to talk to this man, ask this man what's going on, to talk to the children, to talk to witnesses. But that wasn't done at that time. They talked to me about, okay, you shouldn't be saying this, and we
Mm.
don't want to hear you saying this again. No, I am going to say this as long as these children come to me and tell me, I'm going to say. But I did my part. I reported it, and the school board and someone from the school board office and the principal and the young man who I accused. Thankfully, I had a female principal who was actually in the room as well. But I just couldn't believe, and she was a witness. I wouldn't have the meeting without her. But I just couldn't believe that this is,
Bullying at its finest.
it is because you're upset because I'm saying this man is inappropriate with these young ladies.
Or at least that it's been alleged, right? So this is
It's,
what I
it's, it's,
understand.
it's been alleged. It's been alleged. It's been alleged.
And
So
for
I'm telling you what I see. I'm telling you what the kids are saying. So if that's the case, do an investigation on that. But I'm saying that this is going on, and as long as I've been in education, really as long as I've been a grown person, I've been told, watch how you handle other people's children. You don't know what somebody's child might say. So why is it that now all of a sudden it's almost as free reign to be so carefree with other people's children, especially these men? They're so carefree talking to these young girls in high school. I don't understand it. Do you not value a job? Do you not?
So a couple things. One, tell everybody, for the folks who don't know. I was going to explain a dictionary
Oh, I
earlier, but I
apologize.
chose not to. But let's talk about because some people have never seen a dictionary, Anne. But let's talk to the folks about what mandatory reporting is, why it's necessary, and how you are accountable for mandatory reporting as an educator in your state.
Okay. Well, a mandated reporter means that as a teacher, if I see a child that is being abused, a child that might be hurt, if I see anything that does not seem to fit the healthy bill of a child walking in the building to be educated, if I see anything that might be awry with this child, it is my responsibility to alert administration, for the school to alert social services, and for there to be an investigation to make sure that child is not being abused in some way or form. Whether a child comes in with tattered clothes, the child comes in looking hungry, the child comes in and says that he or she is in distress physically, the child comes in and says someone is touching them, saying something inappropriately. I mean, it does. Someone's hitting the poor child. It doesn't matter. I've got to say something. If I don't say something, and then it comes out that the child was in distress, and the child had said something to me, or I was aware of it, then I can go to jail or lose my job. So that is what a teacher's supposed to do. So with that being said, if I'm in the conversation and kids are talking about inappropriate things being said to them by someone who is a grown man in the school, working in the school, my lord, guess what? I've got to report it. If I see something that doesn't look quite right, and I'm not saying quite right on oh, I'm going to investigate. I'm just saying quite right as I'm a grown woman who has a child, and I wouldn't want my child to be talked to like that or my child to be around something like that. This doesn't look quite right. It's my responsibility to report that. We have cameras all over the school. So if something is going on and then they go look at the camera, well, Miss Anderson was in the vicinity. Why
Yeah.
didn't she say something about it?
But and what do you say to people who I'm sure I'm gonna hear this. I'm sure people I'm like, yeah, but these girls out here in high school looking like they in their late 20s and they fast and blah 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 blah. Blah.
Mhm.
What do you say to that? The over sexualization of high school kids.
And that is exactly right. They do look like they're grown women. They may act like they're grown women, and they may love any type of attention that they get from a man or a woman at this point, they may love it. But with that being said, it's still there still has to be a boundary, a healthy boundary between an adult and a child. And in the real world, while there may not always be that healthy boundary between an adult and a child, in the school system, there's supposed to be. There's supposed to be.
And so you have this, they basically staged this intervention for you who are not the culprit of the accused thing that was said to the children inappropriately. All right, they staged this intervention to
They
talk.
staged it. I didn't stage it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They staged
They
this intervention.
staged it. Yeah, they staged it. Yeah.
And the first thing that comes to mind is the lyrics from the Dukes of Hazzard, just the good old boys, never mean no
Good
harm,
old
right? Like,
boys.
and it's an ode to men taking care of men. And you
Yes.
have this principal, this other principal female in there with you. What happens at the end of the conversation? Because I can appreciate, I think it's a really strategic move on your part to like, you know what? I'm not going to argue with you. I said what I
Mm-mm.
said. Don't
Mm-mm.
ask me again. And it's on record that I said what I said. And now
Yeah.
it's your liability, not mine. What happens after that? Like, how are you treated? What's like, does the other young lady in the room say, like, you know what, she's right? Like, what's the tea in the room? And then what happens afterwards?
Well, in the room, the female, the female witness, she was quiet and listened. That's all she did, which I appreciate that. I listened, and they felt like they won.
And were
They
you
felt
treated,
they felt like they won. That's what they felt they won.
and how did
That's
they
what
act
that
afterwards?
was their feeling that they had won. Now it wasn't my feeling at all because I said what I'd said. I didn't back down. I wasn't upset. I wasn't mad. I said what I said.
And I think so, sidebar, right? So again, we're talking about bad bosses. When dealing with the bully, one of the things to master, and I think you're displaying this to us, is like maintain your own composure.
Yeah,
Because the bully feeds on fear. And I've said it before, you can't control what somebody else's fears, right? If they
exactly.
fear you, they fear your intellect, they feel your positioning, they fear that you're going to say the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's all these
Right.
whistleblower laws because people, when they operate in fear, they make very bad decisions and they typically try to lean on or oppress another person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The best thing you can do is one, be strategic, two, maintain your composure. There's no, especially in a power situation, because you didn't have
Mm-hmm.
power in the conversation. It was the
Right.
person trying to intimidate you
Right.
into some level of submission, right?
Right.
And being able to maintain your composure to say, I've said what I said, I don't need to repeat myself, let's move on. So
That's
so
right.
then you leave the room, they think they got the W, then what happens?
Well, nothing happened for a while. Things went on as usual, and coincidentally, I want to say maybe 8, 9 months later, the young man unfortunately lost his job when mm, when his wife found out that he was trying to talk to a child's mother at the school.
I know you lying.
And apparently she put the information on Facebook and was upset with that. And then she came up to the school with, if I'm not mistaken, a hammer or a bat, maybe both of those. And he went and he ran and hid, and it was a big mess. And and well, all I can say is, as Aunt Jenny might say, the mess hit the fan. So but I hate that for these young people. I hate that because we're supposed to be role models. And so Lord knows I didn't take any. I
Joy.
was hoping, I was really hoping that they could be true role models for the children, because the children seemed to enjoy, a lot of children seemed to enjoy the fella when he was there working. And I was hoping that, he would get himself together. And I was hoping that, I'd be wrong, and that the allegations that were being said, were not going to be correct. But needless to say, and I can't tell you what was. I just know what I saw, what I was hearing, but I had to report it. But that is what happened to the young man, and I was very sorry to hear that.
I hate it for him, and I feel like I just heard like the ending of a very interesting Tyler Perry drama with the lady and the hammer. My God.
You can't make this stuff up. You really can't.
So
But but this is my thing though. Why we talk about this good old boy network? Because still, we as women are fighting to be heard in the workplace. What we say seems to never be heard. It's never heard. And so I'm just wondering, why is it? Why would you have two men who are professionals, who have worked hard and are making huge salaries in the school system, put their put their jobs on the line for someone else like that, who actually has that type of behavior? Why would you do that? Just be professional. Be professional. So all you have to do is just be professional. Be professional, and you don't have to worry about that. Have those talks with your subordinates.
yeah, I found a. It's funny. I've had my fair share of internal investigations of staff members and finding out that there were relationships that were inappropriate that people knew about and didn't say anything. Right? That you don't have the same kind of mandatory reporting in a lot of office settings. But
Hmm.
I've also found that it is much like, I don't say every man, but a lot of men will more than likely either default to minding their own business and defaulting to not being suspicious and curious and lean on the bias of, oh, he's cool. He wouldn't do that. Like there's this interesting, I don't want to say logic, but just an assumption like, nah, he would never do that. And they move on. And you never know how you're painted in the conversation of either, well, she wants me or she's jealous or all of the 17 things he probably told himself to
But you are right.
justify, right?
Yeah, you're
Um,
right. Yeah.
and so, and you have an earned reputation of being feisty, right? And so I think, tell me what
Maybe. Maybe.
So I think people find that both intimidating and maybe even off-putting because you don't mince words. We didn't grow up in houses where you minced words. It was either white or black, or yes or
Yeah.
no. You did or you didn't. And even if
Yeah.
you didn't, you still might get a spanking for it because somebody did it. Like, if we can't
Exactly.
find the
Exactly.
culprit, right? Like, it
Exactly.
wasn't nothing be like, oh, ain't none of y'all gonna fess up, and everybody getting a punishment, right?
Everybody gets it.
And so this system of both truth and justice that I have witnessed you live by is not universal. Not everybody has those values.
Mm-mm.
Not everybody has that muster. Not everybody has that commitment and dedication to this kind of concepts of like it's right is right and wrong is wrong. In a lot of places it's very relative.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about, you have like 1,001 stories. There's just so many to go into. You do a lot outside of the school system. Like you tutor, you've been in mental health. Like talk to me about the things that you've seen from a mental health perspective in dealing with, being an educator and what challenges you see with teachers and the things that they face.
I see a lot of burnout. I
Hmm.
see teachers that do not know how to say no. They take on too many commitments, and it's not because they don't have the ability to control their schedule. It's because they just have that love, they have that passion. I myself have the same problem. I want to do 1,000 things, And my body and my time, unfortunately, can't take care of all these things. But they, a lot of teachers, they wind up not being able to do their meditation, their mindfulness exercises, which is what they definitely need to do. Teachers need to be able to please use your counseling services. You need a counselor. You need to be able to vent and talk to someone. Don't go home and vent. No, don't go home and vent because your loved ones will be tired of hearing it. You need to go to someone. I'm sure you have benefits. Go to go to a counselor, a medical trained counselor, and let them tell you. And they'll probably tell you the same thing. They'll probably tell you deep breathing exercises. They'll tell you, keep a journal. They'll tell you think positive thoughts. They'll tell you to sing. They'll tell you to have, you know, a special day for yourself, take 15 minutes each day, maybe listen to a certain song, maybe take a long bubble bath. You've got to have some type of relaxation time for yourself. And of course, you know this stuff, but sometimes it takes somebody else to tell you that. And you've got to be able to also talk to somebody outside of your household. You've got to. So please take care of yourself because it's terrible to be burned out. And if you are burned out, you're not going to be able to do your job. You're going to wind up resenting your job, and your students are going to they're going to understand that that enthusiasm that you had in your eyes when you walked into that classroom the first day is going to be gone by week 6. By week 6, not week 26, by week 6. So please take care of yourself and understand that you are just as important as the students. You're just as important as your children, as your husband, as your mother, as anybody else, your neighbors you're taking care of, as your dogs. You are important. So treat yourself accordingly as well.
What about the school system, Anne? Because you said all really, I agree with you on a thousand fronts. But what is it about the current environment in the education space that leads to some of this burnout, that leads to people being asked over and over again to extend beyond what's on the job description or what can be fit into their work hours?
Well, first of all, there's so much that we have to do in a short amount of time that you feel like you'll never get it done. And so you're taking so much work home with you. The work is overpowering. So it's not just teaching the classes, it's the lesson planning, it's the preparation for the classes. It's all the other mentoring that you have to do. It's all the other assignments that they plan for you to do. It's the it's when you're voluntold to take on committees and voluntold for other jobs. I mean, there's so many things because pretty much with a contract, you're told that you are owned from 8 o'clock to 3:30, and so you're pretty much
Oh,
expected to. Yeah, you're pretty much expected to do what they told you to do. You pretty much are expected, and then a lot of times you feel like if you complain about a lot of stuff, you might, I don't know, you might be retaliated against. There
how?
is that there is that air of retaliation. There really is.
So
If you
tell me
complain.
about experience that you've witnessed this retaliation. Like maybe
Mm.
not you, but
I've witnessed people maybe not being promoted to different jobs because they might have complained about different things. They felt that their rights were being violated. Um, I have, well, I mean, and it's scary. It's scary when you have worked so hard and went to school for so long to be in a profession, and you feel that that can be jeopardized by you saying no to something,
mm,
by you asking not to do something, by you asking maybe for help with something. That is terrifying. By you saying that you don't think that something is correct. I myself, I was afraid that I was going to face that when about maybe, I want to say it might have been in February. We had an issue with our tax withholding. It was a tax withholding scandal at Danville Public Schools, where somehow, I don't know how, but Danville Public Schools was not able to honor most of the employees' federal W-4s. And so we didn't, most of the employees didn't find that out until we got our W-2s. And we found out, well, hold for a second. These look a little different. We started getting our taxes done and we're, wait a minute, why do we owe so much money back? Hold on, this is not right. And so when this started coming out, um, a lot of people felt like we were being victimized because we were told, well, you all weren't checking your pay stubs, or you all must not have done your W-4s correctly. And that was, and a lot of people were so upset, but people were afraid to say something because you were afraid of what was going to come from saying something. Well, I went to the school board and I said something. My 3 minute speech on how, Lord have mercy, my 3 minutes,
Listen, Odessa prepared you well.
exactly 3 minutes they give you on how true that it wasn't our fault and how we were victimized, and the very children, because we're taking care of low income children in Danville, Virginia, yet you're tearing the households of the very children up because we're the parents of the children who go to your schools.
Mm.
And so our households are going to financially suffer because of the mistake that has been made. So yes, while we did get that money during the year, we were not aware of that. We're not accountants, and to tell me that I should have been looking at my check stub. I'm not an accountant, but I've been working for well over 32 years. I have never had to look at McDonald's. I never had to check with Family Dollar. I've been with this school system for almost 20 years at that time, and I never had a problem. Now it's a problem. Now I've got to check it, which I'm saying it's good to check stuff. But once again, I didn't know, I would not have known if they were taking the correct amount. We were getting different raises and things. So it was very hard for us to understand that. Apparently, it was hard because they didn't get it right. Needless to say, I was very I was very worried that I was going to face some backlash from that. And I was thankful that I had the DEA, the Danville Educators Association, behind me because I was talking on behalf of my peers and my, fellow associates when I made that statement. Yet, yet a month, not even a month after that happened, I was assaulted by an employee in the hallways at George Washington High School. And I don't want to get into all of it, but the young man assaulted me. He grabbed me, and I thought I'd handled it. I told him to leave me alone, and he left me. He did leave me alone, so I thought I'd handled it. Yet about 2 weeks later, as strong as I am, I um I had a little meltdown, a little PTSD, because I am a survivor of domestic violence. It triggered something in me. So it triggered something in me. That man had never done anything to me before in the past, no, but another man had. So with that being the case, that triggered my feelings, and I was having a very hard time going to work. And so I had to write that up. And I felt I was treated as a victim again because, well, why are you just now doing this? And it took a long, and I could tell them all the details, but I couldn't tell you the day. It's
Mm.
like my mind had blocked a lot of stuff out. Yet my students remembered because the young man went into the classroom after me, didn't realize I had class, didn't realize I had class.
So he was pursuing you into the
He
classroom.
pursued me into the classroom after I broke away from him. He did. But needless to say, I was told they couldn't find the footage. All those cameras, they couldn't find the footage. They did a short investigation. It was over, and I said, well, it's over just like that. Yeah. Well, now, mind you, the young man didn't speak to me after I didn't speak to him. But still, I'm having a hard time even working in the building.
Mm.
I'm having a hard time. So they told me I was welcome to leave and go to another school if I needed to. What about my
Oh,
son? My son's going to be a senior, and he knows this man assaulted me. I I'd like to be with my son. Oh, he can go to another school too. Wow, so I've been here 20 years. So I went into spring break, after I've given 20 years to the school system, being told, well, I could just, go wherever I want to if that's the case. I started not to even sign my contract. But, so I prayed. And this is where you have to decide what is best for you. What, because I was not going to come back.
mm.
But I had to talk with my family, my son, my daughters, what's best for our family, what was best for me, for the other children that I teach. And I got myself together. I said, hold on for a minute. Let me not forget who I am and what my rights are. Let me sit up a little bit so I can talk to you about this. Let me not forget who I am and get myself together, what my rights are. Know what your rights are. Seek legal counsel. Research, investigate. So I found what my rights were. Despite, don't wait for your employer to tell you what your rights are. You see, I had a momentary lapse, and we all gonna have those sometimes, because I was not strong at that moment. For about a good couple of weeks, I wasn't strong. I wasn't strong at all. But you know what? I got myself right on back. I got myself together and started thinking, thank you, Lord. I sure did. Got myself right together and got my research done. And I found my got my legal rights in and what I was able to do. And we had another and there wound up being another investigation, and they were able to move the young man to another school where I wouldn't have to look at him. Now I want to, for the record, say I wasn't going to put anybody in jail. I wanted the man to keep his hands off me and stay away from me. And that's what I wanted. And
And
thank
that's
you, Lord, that's
reasonable.
what we got. That's what
Yeah.
we got. But now, if need be, I know what my rights were.
One, I want to say thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your, it's a very meaningful, deep, painful experience.
Yes.
And we don't typically share, we don't typically hear people willing to share that side of what happens, the darker side
Hmm.
of not being supported, the darker side of what happens in these very close proximity spaces, the
Yeah.
darker side of being triggered by a previous event. Like all of that is so both vulnerable, and I know someone will be encouraged by the fact that you found yourself. Like, let me go figure. Listen,
I
I
hope so. I hope
just
so. I pray that because, if I can help somebody, then my living has not been in vain.
yeah.
It's not been in vain.
And I think that's one of a really great takeaway of like, don't forget who you are. Don't forget who you are. Don't forget
Don't do
what
it.
your rights are. And if you don't know what your rights are, go find out. And it's best to know them before you get in the situation.
Yes.
But at even if you can't know in that moment, going to find it afterwards is, I think, is really, really. I guess the question I have for you now, Anne, is how do you choose to start back again in the fall? Like what conscious choice are you making knowing that you weren't supported, knowing that you had to create accountability where it didn't exist. Like if I think of like all of the like my boss sucks situations, like
Mhm.
this for me is like deep. This is like this isn't just like interpersonal crisis. This is I was physically assaulted. I had
Yes,
every right to press charges, have a
yes.
trial, whatever that was, right? To
Mhm.
like and knowing that you didn't have the support, knowing that
Didn't.
you were in the right, knowing that there is a shadow of even inappropriateness between the coincidence of like y'all ain't do my paycheck right to now y'all not gonna look at my situation, right? Like it's coincidental. I ain't gonna say it's causality, but it's a big coincidence, right? Right. How do you choose now? What are you choosing this fall? What are you choosing as you enter into this next year? What are you choosing in how you show up based on all of that? Because a lot of people I know as women, some of us can't get over stuff like that. Some of us are like, you know what? We just way down. We get to the point where we feel so low or so self worthless and all of the things. How are you choosing differently?
Triumph. Triumph. I'm walking in like a queen. Do you hear me? Because I have battled, I have battled this. I feel like I've come through the battle,
Okay.
and my armor is strong.
Okay.
I'm
Come
thankful. I
on.
mean, I'm thankful. I am so thankful, and I feel stronger than ever. And sometimes I guess you have to go through things to better appreciate things, and I appreciate myself. I appreciate myself so much more now. I do. I have never been so much more proud of myself as a strong woman. I never have. I never have. Because I can't believe, because I'm going to be honest with you. First of all, going through domestic violence and going through and dealing with that, and then thinking that you've healed, then to be triggered again, and then to still go and as a single parent, having to feel like I'm fighting my employer, my livelihood, and knowing I'm right. Oh, and I'm not saying I want to have to be in a struggle by any means. I don't. But to know that I feel that God was on my side, because I right was on my side, and I was gonna fight tooth and nail.
Look, it's like
And
that
I
color
wasn't
purple.
asking for a lot. How can you? I wasn't even asking for a lot. Just move the young man to another location. Move him to another location. And thank God he's gone. Another location. And you know what? Now he's their liability. He's their liability. You've been told what he did. He's their liability now.
Which is kind of a theme if you think about it. Like
Wow.
we work for a
Think
school
about that.
system that is
Wow.
willing.
Wow. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Wow. So what I want what I want to take away is know your rights. Everything that you read and everything that they expect you to do, make sure you read everything. Make sure you well, everything you have to sign, make sure you read it. Go in there and do your job. But do what you can. But make sure that you understand your classroom culture and love your kids. Do it for your passion of taking care of these kids, because you can't get everything done. There's no way in the world that everything's going to be done. No way in the world. Don't let even, it doesn't bother me. I'll shake my head and say, okay, I'll do the best I can. When 3:45 comes, hey, it is what it is. I've done the best I could do, but you know what? I will make sure these kids have what they need. And if it's not in their curriculum, hey, these are seniors trying to graduate. They still have to get they still need to get a college application done. They have to get a scholarship done. We're gonna get some stuff done. So we're gonna try to find some time for that. So you know what? Hey, we'll do the best we can. The world
I,
is not gonna end.
I love it.
The
I
world
love
is
it.
not gonna end.
So,
It's
and
not gonna end.
go ahead. You want to finish?
Oh, I'm sorry, but I also want to add, but the way our employers try to hold us accountable for professionalism, hold them accountable too. And for every Oh my goodness, for every procedure that they say they're going to follow, for every policy they're going to work on. Oh, yeah. Make sure that when you have an issue, they follow that doggone policy as well, that procedure. Make sure you understand that too. Read the fine print.
I fully agree with you. I fully agree with you. And I tell people all the
Yeah.
time, like, go find your handbook, go find your policies
Read
and
it.
procedures. And in the age of AI, I don't know is not a good answer. It's not an acceptable answer. Not when you can put the PDF into your chat of choice, right? And then ask
Mm-hmm.
it based on the situation, what
Mm-hmm.
can I not do? Be
Mm-hmm.
equipped with the information. Don't be lazy. I do want go ahead.
Oh, if I can add, Natalie. Also, make sure that you find your union representative and make sure that you befriend your union representative. Know your resources and do not be afraid when you have an issue to take your union representative with you to your human resource meeting with your supervisors. And if there's a problem, then they have the problem because that's your right. That is your right. Because it's amazing how administration will sometimes, schedule meetings for, employees with their union reps, and then they keep on dodging, and changing meetings at the last minute. It's really amazing how they do that. But I'm going to tell you all, so many employees are afraid to reach out to their union representatives, their DEA representatives, or their VEA, or their NEA. It doesn't matter, but they're afraid because they're afraid that they're gonna get in trouble with the superintendent or the school board members. Who cares? That's your right to have someone there. And when you're in the middle of a crisis, you need somebody with a level head to take notes for you. With a level head to be your witness, because they might be the ones who are going to have your back and have a lawyer for you. So please make sure you have somebody there with you. Please make sure, because when you're in a crisis, your employer doesn't have your back. Just being honest with you, have your own back. Please do. I beg you all to have that.
So it's interesting. Like the HR person to me is like, but you don't need the union, and then like the recovering non HR person is like, get your union. My dad, having been the shop steward at Teamsters Local 830, it's important to have an advocate when you
It
can't
is.
advocate for yourself, whatever that looks like, right?
Right.
Especially someone who knows the system, because oftentimes we work inside a system,
Right.
and because you're a subset of the greater system, you don't know the entire system. You know your
Exactly.
classroom. You know your classroom. You might know some of the other ancillary support systems around you, but you don't know the overarching system. That's all the more reason to phone a friend, to call in a resource, to make sure you have more than you do at the table when you're having the conversation. Because
Hmm.
it's unfortunate to say, but you can assume that the other party is going to operate in good faith. They're going to operate in their best interest. And with that in mind, it's important to have someone to help level the playing field of that interest.
Right.
We're a little bit out of time, but I do want to have this conversation because I've had it with everyone about parents. We talked about the administration. We talked about kind of your next level leader. Talk to me about parents being the bad boss. Like, what situations have you had where you're like, man, I wish these parents would do different and be different because it would make my job easier?
Well, I've never had a problem with parents, to tell you the truth.
Okay, come
Parents,
on.
they've always been supportive. I've never had a problem. Parents have always been supportive.
How is being educated by Miss Anderson different than a lot of other teachers that you've been around? Because I think knowing some of your stories, knowing some of the things that you say to kids, I was like, yo, you got off the chain. But it works for you. It works.
Well, I tell them when they come into my classroom, they are my children. They're my children. And I would not tell them anything that I wouldn't tell my own children. And I have 35-year-old children running around this town. Hey, Miss Anderson, how you doing? Hey, how you doing? They'll just stop and hug me, and I'm seeing the kids and everything. But when they are my children in the classroom, they're my children forever. And so they know that when I argue with them, sometimes I'll argue with them, I lay them out sometimes. We go back and forth a little bit, but they know that I do that with love. I'm the same every day. I'm the same. The same. They know I'm going to say it. They know I'm going to say. I'm consistent. That's the word. I am consistent.
And you have no problem embarrassing people if you need
No
to.
problem at all. But look, they give it to me too now. With love. They give it to me too now. We back and forth sometimes. We are back and forth.
I
So
love it.
I'll play with them a little bit now.
I
A
love
little
that.
bit. With love.
So,
But I really enjoy having that relationship with them. I really do.
what, as 20 plus years in, let's just assume you're going to, retire in another 20 years, whatever the number is. I know it's probably more like 10. But when you retire, what's one thing you want people, your students, your peers, what's the thing you want them to say about you and what they've learned about you, learned from you as an educator?
That I love each and every one of my students. Love each and every one of them. They know it. They do. They do.
Any final thoughts, Anne, as we wrap up our session today?
Well, I just want to thank you very much for having me and for allowing me to hopefully inspire these new teachers coming in. And please, new teachers, please do not get tired of the bureaucracy. Just go in, just remember that you have a passion for teaching. Just do what you can do. You are not a superhero. Do what you can do. Take care of yourself in all aspects, your mental health, your health, and know your legal rights at all times. And speak up for yourself politely. Speak up for yourself politely.
Thanks, Anne. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Natalie.
Today's episode is brought to you by Natalie Parker Enterprises, where we shape the future and unlock potential by helping organizations and people work together to do good work. Find out more at thenatalieparker.com. Or if you'd like to be a sponsor, email us at info@thenatalieparker.com.